My cousin and I both got into top-tier magic academies at the same time. Right after, she started spreading slut-shaming rumors about me, saying I only got in by sleeping with a man on the admissions board. Little did she know, I'd applied to the Academy of Bliss. The matriarch slammed her hand on the table. Sleeping with hundreds of men a year? Are you some kind of prodigy? I'm taking you on as my personal protege. You're getting the star treatment. Today was the day the academies sent out their acceptance letters. The admissions courtyard had been packed with anxious parents since dawn. They kept craning their necks toward the sky, occasionally turning to murmur amongst themselves. My heart is pounding so hard I can barely breathe. I know, right? As long as your kid gets into any academy, even a third-tier one, their future is set. They'll be on the fast track to a better life. How could anyone not be nervous? Not everyone. Look at Lila's parents over there, cool as cucumbers. Everyone turned to stare enviously at my aunt and uncle. My cousin, Lila, was a renowned local prodigy. She had an incredible memory and could grasp all the boring, difficult foundational knowledge with ease. Though her elemental affinity hadn't been officially tested, everyone assumed her acceptance into a magic academy was a sure thing. Basking in the admiring gazes, my Aunt Lou lifted her chin smugly. You're all too kind. But if you ask me, the calmest people here should be my sister and brother-in-law. With Maya's grades, I have no idea why you even bothered wasting the money. Aunt Lou pointed a finger at my mom. Mom nervously clutched the patched fabric of her skirt and forced an awkward smile. The girl wanted to try, so we let her. The crowd erupted in laughter. Unlike Lila, I'd never had a single day of formal schooling because of my family's poverty. But I knew that in the academy entrance exams, foundational knowledge was only a small part. The most important thing was testing a candidate's latent magical aptitude. Whenever I was in the forest, I always felt a sense of deep comfort. I could see tiny green sparks of light on the plants, which made me think I probably had a wood-based elemental affinity. So I begged my parents to pay the $10 silver fee and send me to take the exam. I never expected that when the news got out among our relatives, I would be met with unanimous ridicule and scorn. My dad was a blacksmith, but he'd injured his hand 5 years ago and could no longer swing a hammer. My mom took on embroidery work to make ends meet, and our life was a constant struggle. Everyone laughed at our family for being so poor and still daring to daydream. Aunt Lou even brought my cousin over to our house to scold my mom and demand she cancel my application. Lila flicked her handkerchief, her eyes red with anger. Maya, you're such a copycat. You've copied me your whole life. When we go to Grandpa's for New Year's, if I wear a red dress, you have to wear red. Whatever hairstyle I have, you copy it. And now you're trying to copy my dream of becoming a mage? Mages are noble and powerful. How dare a pauper like you even think about it? I don't want you in the same exam hall as me. Auntie, you have to cancel Maya's application right now. My mom wrung her hands anxiously. The money's already been paid. How can we cancel it? Aunt Lou snorted and threw 2 silver ingots on the ground. Here's your money. Go get the registration withdrawn. Everyone else applying to the academies around here is from a wealthy family. What makes a broken-down household like yours think you belong? She wasn't the only one who thought that way. $10 silver was more than half a year's wages for a poor family. For a child who'd never been to school, the chances were already slim. No one else would risk such a large sum on such an uncertain future. That's why, in recent years, most of the applicants were from rich families. For the poor, just living a peaceful life was a blessing. To dream of climbing higher was seen as an unforgivable sin. Aunt Lou threw a massive fit, but while my parents' posture was humble, they gritted their teeth and refused to give in, no matter how much she insulted them. My aunt was secretly furious. Now, she wouldn't miss the chance to humiliate me. Look at you, so dull and stupid. You can't even read. You can't handle books, yet you dream of studying magic? What academy would ever want you? You're not even qualified to sweep their floors. A lecherous-looking man nearby suddenly cut in. I don't know about that. Look at her figure and pretty face. I hear that even low-level mages haven't entirely given up worldly desires. Maybe one of them will take a liking to her as a maid or a concubine. Lila covered her mouth and let out a little laugh. Mr. Davies, Are you sure you're not the one who's taken a liking to my cousin? But I should warn you, my cousin is very popular with the boys back in our village. She has quite a few close male friends. My mother's face flushed red as she tried to argue, but just then, a commotion erupted in the crowd. Someone pointed excitedly at the sky. Look, a mystical crane. The academy acceptances are here. Someone got in. One of us got in. The admissions courtyard was built on a platform 100 feet high, with a grand staircase and gleaming white marble railings. It was where candidates waited for the academies to deliver their acceptance letters. Now, the entire platform was a sea of people, all staring up at the sky in excitement. The mystical crane flew closer, and with a beat of its wings, it bathed the entire courtyard in a soft green light. The crowd's excitement subsided a bit as someone whispered, "Oh, it's just a third-tier academy." The magic academies were divided into 3 tiers. There were only 5 top-tier academies, like the Skyfire Sword Clan and the Ethereum, all of them legendary institutions. To be accepted by a top-tier academy meant you had 1 foot on the path to immortality, your future secured. There were 37 second-tier academies. Getting into one of them didn't guarantee you'd become a true immortal, but you were almost certain to reach the adept stage and live for over 200 years, far beyond a normal person. As for the third-tier academies, there were over 100 of them, a mixed bag. Many students spent their whole lives there without ever reaching the adept stage, but they could still learn useful skills. Brewing potions or cultivating magical herbs could earn a fortune, not to mention extend one's life to over 100, a far cry from what ordinary people could hope for. Our town of Pine Creek was small. Producing a student for a third-tier academy was already considered a great achievement. A green acceptance letter rose from the crane's back and unfurled in the air, displaying several large, glowing green words. Lila. My aunt shrieked with excitement. It's our Lila. My Lila got in. I knew it. My daughter is a prodigy. I knew she'd be accepted. Congratulations poured in from all around, though some jealous parents muttered under their breath. Just a third tier. And she's calling her a prodigy? What did you say? Just a third tier? If you're so great, let's see your son get into one. Aunt Lou's eyebrows shot up as she charged toward the person, who frantically waved his hands. It wasn't me. I didn't say anything. Mom, it's just sour grapes. We're a mage's family now. Why lower ourselves to their level? Lila scoffed, holding the acceptance letter in her hands, and reading it over and over. The academy announcements followed a strict schedule. The third-tier letters came first. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the second-tier letters would arrive, and finally, the top-tier ones. The crowd stared up at the sky until their necks ached. Time ticked by, but no more cranes appeared. People started sighing in disappointment. No second-tier acceptances. I guess that means no chance for a top tier. Sigh another year and Pine Creek only produced 1 third-tier student. Lila waved her acceptance letter in my face, a triumphant smirk on her lips. See that, Maya? There's no point in wanting things that don't belong to you. Just then, my mom suddenly shot out her hand, pointed at the horizon, and screamed, "Look! Another crane is coming." My aunt impatiently stuck a finger in her ear and glared at my mom. What are you screaming about? What's that got to do with you? Not convinced, she stood on her tiptoes and peered into the distance. I'd like to see who's more impressive than my Lila, getting into a second-tier academy. The crowd began to whisper. Could it be young Mr. Chun from the Chun family? I bet it's Leo Lee from the Lee family. Their academic scores were only slightly behind Lila's. I can't believe they got into a second-tier school. Were they holding back all this time? As everyone watched with bated breath, the crane flew closer, landed on the white marble railing, and a brilliant golden light burst from behind it, nearly blinding everyone. The crowd gasped. A top-tier academy. The crane flapped its wings, tilted its head back, and let out a clear cry. Then it spoke in a human voice. Where is Maya? Is Maya from Wutong Village present? The crane's dark, intelligent eyes scanned the sea of faces. Someone pushed me from behind, and I stumbled forward, stammering, I'm Maya. Follow me to the summit hall to report. My mom covered her mouth, and let out a sob of pure joy. My Maya. My little girl got into a top-tier academy. Wah. My dad, usually a man of few words, had tears in his eyes as he squeezed my mom's hand. Maya, our Maya is amazing. The crowd was in an uproar. My aunt's face twisted into a monstrous grimace. This is impossible. There must be a mistake. How could she be better than our Lila? Sir Crane, was there a mistake with the letters? This top-tier acceptance, it must be for our Lila. The crane flapped a wing and gave my aunt a look you'd give a complete idiot. Nonsense. The letter has her name, and is sealed with her unique aura. How could there be a mistake? Do you think a top-tier academy is some back-alley workshop? The cranes of top-tier academies were all high-level mystical beasts. It was said that with a few hundred more years of cultivation, they could take human form and were more powerful than most adept stage disciples. No one dared to defy such a creature. Scolded by the crane, my aunt's face turned beet red, and she could only stammer meekly, not daring to say another word. The crane flapped its wings again. Where is the magistrate of Pine Creek County? Below the platform, an old man in official robes hurried forward and knelt. Your humble servant is here. As is tradition, Pine Creek County is exempt from taxes for 5 years. You are awarded 3 longevity pills, each extending a life by 10 years. See to it that Maya's family is well cared for. Your servant obeys. The magistrate's eyes lit up, and he trembled with excitement. Longevity pills. A 5-year tax exemption. This was the prestige of a top-tier academy. Heavens, Pine Creek had finally produced a top-tier student. The words promotion were practically written on his forehead. Quickly. Bring 2 sedan chairs. I will personally escort Maya's parents to a banquet at the Pine Crane Pavilion. The common folk below erupted in excitement, the crowd a chaotic mess of people shouting my name. My mom's legs felt weak, and she leaned against my dad. A top-tier academy. My daughter got into a top-tier academy. Just then, Lila's eyes flashed with malice. She clenched her fists, strode forward, and knelt before the crane. Sir, I have something to report. My cousin Maya, she got into the academy by sleeping with men. On the day of the exam, I saw it with my own eyes. Her clothes were a mess as she came out of the examiner's private chambers alone. She's insane. Lila was being completely ridiculous. The academy exam was in 2 parts. The first was a written test on foundational knowledge of the magical world, which I had turned in blank. The next part was the aptitude test, and wasn't everyone taken into the examiner's room alone for that? It's just that when it was my turn, as soon as I placed my hand on the testing stone, a huge gust of wind blew through the room, knocking me to the ground. My hair was a mess, so of course I looked a little disheveled when I left. I never thought Lila would see that and twist it into such a disgusting accusation. The other parents, not knowing the exam procedures, thought I was the only one who went into the examiner's room alone. A wave of murmurs and shocked whispers spread through the crowd. Is that even possible? Look at her, with that curvy figure. I knew she was trouble. Do mage examiners fall for that sort of thing? Hey, mages are still men, aren't they? Why wouldn't they? If I'd known you could sleep your way into a top-tier academy, I'd have done it myself. Silence, the crane commanded, lifting one foot and eyeing Lila coldly. I will report this matter to the summit hall. The masters will decide. You two will go home and say your goodbyes to your families. Do not speak of this again. Tomorrow, someone from the summit hall will come to escort you. Because my acceptance was now in question, the magistrate didn't dare celebrate with a big banquet. We went home, where my mother clutched my hand, her expression fraught with worry. Maya, I know you're not that kind of person, but with Lila spreading these lies and ruining your reputation, what if the academy won't take you? My dad, seething with anger, stormed into the kitchen and came out with a cleaver. If her foul mouth costs our daughter her future, I'll settle this with her myself. Dad, Mom, don't worry. This is a top-tier academy. They have their own ways of finding out the truth. They won't just take Lila's word for it. I said that, but I'd underestimated my aunt's family's ability to spread rumors. The crane had explicitly ordered silence, but by the next day, the whole town was buzzing with stories of me seducing the examiner. Everyone was saying that before I even entered the testing room, I'd eagerly stripped naked and gone in completely bare. They claimed that everyone in the exam hall had seen it, and were utterly shocked. The stories were told with such convincing detail. My cousin left before me. By the time I arrived at the summit hall on the back of the crane, every new student was already gossiping about it. A round-faced girl in a pink dress saw me get off the crane and sidled up to me, winking conspiratorially. "I'm Chloe. You're from the Pine Creek area, right? I heard some wild stuff came out of that little town." Chloe grabbed my arm and glanced around mysteriously. "This girl, Maya, they say she's naturally promiscuous. She's been with every man in her village. When she was 12, she even seduced her own first cousin. Her aunt caught them in the act and chased her out, beating her." Seduced my cousin? When I was 12, I was visiting my aunt's house. My cousin got drunk and grabbed my skirt, insisting I go to his room with him. I was terrified and started crying. I knocked over a tea set, and my aunt even forced my mother to pay 2 silver pieces in compensation. How did that become me seducing him? And during the aptitude test, she deliberately dressed provocatively and rubbed herself all over the examiner. Chloe chattered on. "Wow, I can't believe a woman that shameless exists. You're from the same area. Have you heard these stories about Maya? Is she really like that?" Someone else shook their head in disapproval. "That sounds exaggerated. Do you really think you can get into a top-tier academy just by selling your body? It's probably just a rumor." Chloe replied, "I don't think so. Where there's smoke, there's fire. If it was just a rumor, why is it only about her and no one else? I heard she's coming to the summit hall today. I bet she'll be dressed like a total slut. We'll know as soon as we see her." I looked down at my own clothes, which were plain and second-hand. Afraid of the cold, I had even buttoned the collar high, covering my neck completely. Except for my hands, not an inch of my skin was exposed. Could this really be considered provocative? According to the rules, all accepted candidates would gather at the summit hall first and wait 3 days for representatives from the various academies to come and collect them. My cousin had arrived before me and had already taken the opportunity to spread a ton of rumors. Coming from a poor family and getting into a top-tier academy had already made a lot of people unhappy. The jealous ones were now adding fuel to the fire. I personally witnessed a young man I'd never met before, hands behind his back, let out a sneer with a knowing look on his face. "Oh, that Maya from the neighboring Pine Creek, TSK." Chloe's face lit up with excitement. "Zach, that TSK of yours sounds like there's a story there. You two must have some history, right?" Everyone eagerly pricked up their ears. Zach gave a slight smile and shrugged. "We crossed paths once. She begged me to meet her at the 10-Mile Pavilion at night, saying she'd spend the night with me if I'd just let her see my study notes. That kind of trash, throwing herself at me for free, I wasn't even interested. I never thought she'd manage to scheme her way into a top-tier academy. If the magic world keeps going like this, it's doomed." The crowd sighed and shook their heads. Exactly. Who would believe someone like that could get into a top-tier academy? The fool. Does she think sleeping with one examiner solves everything? These commoners are so out of the loop. They don't know the rules. An acceptance letter is just the first step. After this, there's a public interview with a panel of 10 senior mages. Only after passing that are you truly accepted. A sense of panic began to bloom amidst my confusion. An interview? Everyone was talking about me. What if the mages believed the rumors and gave me a hard time during the interview? As I stood there, lost in thought, Chloe was bumped by someone and stumbled forward. I quickly grabbed her arm to steady her. "Careful." Chloe gave me a grateful smile and, with her natural friendliness, linked her arm with mine. "Thanks. I'm so excited for the interviews. By the way, you're from the same region as Maya. You must have heard a lot about her, right? Can you give me the details?" Under Chloe's expectant gaze, I managed a tight smile. "It's all just rumors." "Haha, then how come the rumors are only about her? You're so naive. You know we've been talking for a while, and you haven't said a single bad word about Maya. You're a pretty decent person. I like making friends with people like you. What's your name?" "My name is Maya." An angry shout came from the distance. My cousin, hiking up her skirts, was storming toward me. Well, you still have the nerve to show up. You heard, didn't you? There's an interview next. Are you planning to get through that by taking your clothes off too? Half of those 10 mages are women. When your fake achievements are exposed, you're going to bring shame to all of Pine Creek. Chloe's eyes widened, and she let out a sharp gasp, instinctively letting go of my arm. You're Maya? But your clothes, you don't look like. My cousin rolled her eyes. You can't judge a book by its cover. What do you know? Don't be fooled by her old clothes. Look how tightly that waist is cinched. Look how much her chest is padded out. It's all about the subtle tricks. You wouldn't understand. The crowd erupted. A circle formed around me as everyone started pointing and whispering. Their malicious gazes swept over my waist, my chest, my face. I clenched my fists in humiliation, feeling as though I had been stripped naked. My cousin was gloating. Maya, everyone knows about the disgusting things you've done. If you have any sense, you'll crawl back to where you came from. I couldn't take it anymore. I looked up, my eyes blazing with anger. What disgusting things have I done? Lila scoffed. So you did them, but you won't admit it? Are you denying that you came out of the aptitude testing room with your clothes in disarray? And wasn't it just you and the examiner in that room? Who wasn't alone with the examiner during their aptitude test? My clothes were a mess because a sudden gale had swept through the room. I wanted to argue with her, but I've always been bad with words. The angrier I got, the more tongue-tied I became. I couldn't say a thing, my eyes just welled up with tears, and I wanted nothing more than to lunge at her. My cousin, a skilled talker, seized the opportunity to ramble on, twisting every past event into something ambiguous. A polite smile I'd given my uncle was reframed as me trying to seduce her father. The crowd gathered around, enjoying the drama, until a few academy disciples came to intervene. Silence. The masters have arrived. Disperse and line up immediately. In the center of the summit hall was a circular platform made from a 1,000-year-old phoenix tree. 10 white jade tables were now arranged on it, with wisps of white mist curling around them. Mages were already seated, looking in our direction. Of the 10 mages, 5 were from the top-tier academies, 3 from second tier, and 2 from third tier. Fearing they would displease the masters, the crowd scattered and obediently formed a line. My cousin deliberately got in line ahead of me, sneering and making a gesture. Someone like you, thinking you can join a magical academy? You're dreaming. Just you wait. The interviews went by incredibly fast. The mages seemed uninterested in most of the disciples. Someone would step up, and before they could even speak, the head disciple from the Ethereum, seated in the center, would glance at the aptitude report and wave them away dismissively. Low-grade water affinity. Accepted by the third-tier menagerie. Approved. Next. The line moved quickly. Soon it was my cousin's turn. She stepped onto the platform and gazed at the head disciple with a shy, hopeful look. Master Julian, did you know we met once 3 years ago? It was then that I secretly decided I had to get into an academy. Worthless earth affinity. Trash. Julian coolly lifted his eyelids, a flash of impatience in his eyes. His gaze then shifted to me. Outer disciple of the menagerie. Approved. Next. Lila's pupils contracted, her eyes filled with disbelief and deep frustration. She twisted her fingers, refusing to move. Master, I'm not finished. I have something to report. She pointed a finger at me. That's my cousin Maya. She seduced the examiner during her test and had him cheat for her to get a top-tier academy acceptance letter. Julian raised an eyebrow in surprise. Seduction. His long, slender fingers sifted through a stack of papers, pulling one out. A small smile touched his lips, and a look of understanding crossed his face. The Academy of Bliss, huh? Well, that would make sense. Maya, come here. I walked onto the circular platform. The moment my foot touched the wooden steps, a powerful gust of wind suddenly kicked up. I lost my balance and stumbled forward, falling right at Julian's feet, my chest bouncing with a rather dramatic arc. My cousin shrieked in anger. Maya, what are you pretending for? You fall just walking up a few steps? You're trying to seduce him again. Julian's eyes lit up. He actually came around from behind the table and walked over to me. His strong, powerful forearm supported my wrist as he helped me up, his voice gentle. "Are you all right, junior sister?" The candidates gasped. "Oh my God, that's Julian, the most brilliant and talented disciple of the younger generation. Why is he being so nice to Maya?" You have to admit, that fall was pretty impressive. Even Master Julian seems moved. Impossible. Countless female cultivators throw themselves at him every year. Who does Maya think she is? He must be about to interrogate her. Everyone stood on their tiptoes, craning their necks to watch the show. Unfortunately, a white bubble of light suddenly rose from the platform, enveloping the entire area. The mist swirling around it blocked all sight and sound. "Junior sister, did you sprain your ankle?" Julian was practically holding me as he helped me up from the ground. He was tall and graceful, with the scent of fresh pine clinging to him. His cool, clear eyes held a hint of a smile, enough to take one's breath away. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't tear my eyes from his face. "Junior sister, why would you choose the Academy of Bliss? Was there some kind of misunderstanding?" "Actually, my academy, the Ethereum, Before Julian could finish, another young man slammed the hilt of his longsword into Julian's back. Julian could have dodged, but to protect me, he took the hit squarely. Julian spun around, his eyes blazing. "Cole, what the hell is wrong with you?" Cole burst into laughter. "Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. A top-tier wood affinity. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. The Academy of Bliss has struck gold." Cole ran around the platform in circles, waving the acceptance letter in his hand. "Julian, trying to pull a pretty boy routine? It won't work. She's one of us now. You can't steal her." The senior sister from the Skyfire clan snorted. "Not necessarily. According to the rules, candidates have one more chance to choose their academy during the interview." She walked over to Julian, gave him a shove, and then took my hand with a radiant smile. "Junior sister, I feel like we've met somewhere before. The moment I saw you, my heart just filled with joy. Are you interested in joining the Skyfire clan? I can be your mentor. I'm senior sister Evelyn from the Alchemists Guild." Two more people pushed their way to the front, talking over each other, leaving me completely bewildered. What was happening? It looked like they were fighting over me. Why? My cousin finally understood what was happening and went ballistic. "Are you all mistaken? Taking in a cheap, promiscuous woman like her will ruin your academy's reputation. She'll bring shame to all of you." Lila's voice was shrill. After she yelled, everyone paused for a moment. Only Cole's eyes lit up. He rushed over to her. "You said she's promiscuous? How promiscuous?" Lila, adding her own vicious spin, recounted the story of me seducing the examiner, then moved on to how I'd supposedly seduced my cousin and my uncle, and how I'd been with all the young men in our village. With every word she spoke, the other mages' faces grew paler. Julian just kept shaking his head. "Impossible. People with a wood affinity are usually stubborn and rigid. How could she be so fickle? This has to be a rumor. I saw it with my own eyes. How can it be a rumor?" Lila roared, her once pretty features twisted with jealousy. She pointed a trembling finger at me and spat. "That bitch Maya. She sleeps with at least a few hundred men a year. She's more promiscuous than the cheapest prostitute." The moment she finished, another gust of wind blew across the platform. A longsword hovered in the air, a stunning woman in a red dress standing on its blade. She stepped off the sword as if walking on air, lotus flowers blooming with each step. Her crimson skirts billowed, and her beauty was so radiant it was almost blinding. Cole dropped to one knee, his voice filled with excitement. "Greetings, matriarch." The mages present were all from the younger generation. Seeing the head of the Academy of Bliss, they all bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Matriarch Alara." Matriarch Alara shot me a coquettish glance, her charm disarming. "I've been hearing things about you all morning. You must be Maya?" Lila clenched her fists, her heart pounding with excitement. She dropped to her knees before the matriarch. "You're the head of an academy, so you must have the final say." "Yes, that's right. That's Maya. Maya is promiscuous, shameless, and utterly despicable. She sleeps with hundreds of men a year." You really sleep with hundreds of men a year? Matriarch Ilara's eyes lit up. She slowly reached out to me, and under Lila's tense, expectant gaze, she grasped both of my hands tightly. Are you some kind of prodigy? Lila let out a shocked, duck-like squawk. Ha! Cole clapped his hands and laughed. Exactly. A top-tier wood affinity, and so dedicated to her craft. Isn't she a prodigy? The heavens have blessed our Academy of Bliss. Excellent, excellent. The Academy of Bliss has finally seen this day. Send word at once. Maya is to be my personal protégé. I will train her myself. What? That's impossible. Why would you take her as a disciple? Lila's eyes were wide with fury as she struggled to lunge forward. Cole flicked his sleeve, sending her tumbling to the ground. Lila's eyes rolled back, and she fainted. Cole scoffed. This ugly thing is so annoying. Tell the menagerie to come get her. I don't want her cluttering up the place. Matriarch Ilara took me back to the Academy of Bliss. It was only when we arrived that I finally understood why everyone's reactions had been so strange. My hometown of Pine Creek was remote, so information about the magic academies was limited. All we knew was that among the 5 top-tier academies, there was one called the Academy of Bliss, which was the most mysterious. For some reason, whenever the name came up, everyone would clam up, afraid to say more. When I was filling out my application, I didn't actually know what made the academies different. I had tried to peek at another girl's application, but she turned away, covering her form. What are you looking at? Excuse me, senior sister. Could you tell me what the 5 top-tier academies specialize in? The girl sneered and looked me up and down. You? Aiming for a top-tier academy. From the way you talk, all sweet and delicate, I'd say you're a perfect fit for the Academy of Bliss. And so I put down the Academy of Bliss. I never imagined that this academy's entire practice was based on sleeping with people to enhance one's power. Especially with your wood affinity. A tree sinks its roots into the soil to absorb nutrients. It's a perfect match for our Academy's essence drain technique. With your talent, once you master the essence drain, you'll be able to easily absorb 10% of a man's power. And you're so ambitious. 1 man a day and you'll drain the other 4 academies dry. The Academy of Bliss will be number 1. Ha 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 ha. Matriarch Ilara threw her head back and laughed, while my face went pale. I shook my head frantically. No, Matriarch, I can't do that. Those were all just rumors. The matriarch laughed and put her arm around my shoulder. Don't be so modest. I know you're still shy about it. You mortal women have been brainwashed by men. A promiscuous woman is considered cheap, but a promiscuous man is just a charmer. What's the difference? We who cultivate magic defy the heavens, seizing the world's spiritual energy for our own use. The menagerie captures beasts for mounts, the Alchemist's Guild harvests herbs for potions, and we at the Academy of Bliss use men as catalysts. We are all just using external resources. Using plants, animals, or men. Where's the hierarchy in that? Matriarch Ilara was incredibly patient with me. She explained her philosophy and then personally gave me a tour of the academy. She was stunningly beautiful and had a gentle demeanor. After listening to her, I found that the academy's methods didn't seem so repulsive anymore. The matriarch was right. In the mortal world, men visit brothels all the time. I was on the path to becoming a powerful mage. Sleeping with a few handsome men probably wasn't a big deal, right? But while my mind was starting to come around, my body was still stubbornly resistant. I spent half a year at the Academy of Bliss, and while the basic cultivation exercises were fine, the moment I saw any of my seniors being overtly flirtatious, my face would flush bright red, and I'd freeze on the spot, unable to move. The matriarch poked me with her finger in frustration. Wood affinity, and you're a block of wood. I told you to practice with one of your senior brothers. What are you doing just standing there? I was on the verge of tears. Master, I can't. Cole cupped my chin, a wicked smile on his face. Afraid of me, junior sister? As he spoke, his fingers traced a line down my neck, unfastening my collar and slipping inside. Wah! I burst into tears. Cole threw his hands up in exasperation. Matriarch, we've been duped. This block of wood. She doesn't have a single promiscuous bone in her body. Look at me. I'm this handsome, and she can't even bring herself to touch me. How is she supposed to practice the essence drain? Who is she going to drain? One a day? At this rate, she won't even manage one in 10 years. Matriarch Elara gritted her teeth. Damn it. Such a perfect wood affinity, and it's completely useless. Who was it that started those rumors? I'll find them and tear them limb from limb. Now what? The Inter-Academy tournament is in 6 months. I've been bragging to everyone that if the Academy of Bliss doesn't take first place this year, I'll bark like a dog. What are we going to do now? Cole sneered. She's useless. Let's just throw her out. I tearfully grabbed Cole's sleeve. No, senior brother Cole, I'm useful. I've already mastered the essence drain. What? They both exclaimed in unison, their eyes wide. Matriarch Elara shook her head. You're bluffing. I'm the most brilliant talent the Academy of Bliss has seen in 500 years, and it took me 2 full years to master the essence drain. You did it in 6 months. I'm not lying. I really did it. Look. I pulled open my collar. Just above my chest, a faint, alluring bliss blossom flower was shimmering into view. Matriarch Elara burst into laughter. A genius. You really are a genius. If the Academy of Bliss doesn't take first this time, I'll write my name backward. Cole threw cold water on her excitement. What's the use of mastering it? Who is she going to drain? The essence drain requires the caster to feel desire. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The matriarch stared at me exasperated. Tell me, what will it take for you to sleep with a man? I shook my head blankly. I don't know. I just can't bring myself to do it. Cole rephrased the question. Junior sister, is there anyone you want to sleep with? I paused for a moment. The face of the Ethereum's Master Julian suddenly popped into my head. Seeing my expression, Cole started swearing. For God's sake, we're the Academy of Bliss. Are you trying to have a pure, innocent romance here? The matriarch clapped her hands together. I've got it. Maya's problem is her lack of experience. She doesn't know the pleasures of a man yet. Once she's had a taste, she'll understand how wonderful it is. Other people suffer through their cultivation. We get to enjoy ourselves while leveling up. It's the best deal in the world. If you don't cherish our Academy's essence drain, you'll be struck by lightning. Next month, the menagerie was showcasing a new batch of tamed spirit beasts and had invited all the major academies to attend. Julian would definitely be there. The matriarch and Cole gave me a crash course, drilling into me that I absolutely had to succeed in seducing Julian and draining 10% of his power. Julian is the most talented of the younger generation. He reached the golden core stage 100 years ago. 10% of his power would be enough to push you directly past the adept stage. Then you could crush anyone else from your year. The matriarch's expression was complicated. But Julian, he's not an easy target. Well, just give it a try. If you succeed, our Academy of Bliss will finally be able to hold its head high in front of the Ethereum. Yes, ma'am. I didn't dare slack off. I diligently learned the art of seduction from my senior sisters. On the day of the event at the menagerie, the matriarch even brought out a prized possession for me to wear. A stunning moon-white and crimson flowing gown. As I held my skirt and swayed my hips descending from the back of a blue phoenix, every disciple present stared, mesmerized. Brother Adrian from the menagerie greeted me with a wide smile. Junior sister Maya, please watch your step. The others are already in the Azure Cloud Pavilion. Allow me to show you the way. No need. I can walk myself. The matriarch had told me that apart from my own academy brothers, I shouldn't be too polite to other men. From now on, I should judge men by their power and looks. If they were valuable, drain them. If not, don't waste my time. I remembered her teachings and maintained a cool, distant expression, keeping everyone at arm's length. The Azure Cloud Pavilion was built along a lake, with white silk curtains hanging from the eaves. The architecture was exquisite, and the sound of music drifted through the air. Brother Adrian led me to a low table and instructed a nearby maid. What are you waiting for? Pour some tea for the beautiful Maya. The maid held the teapot, staring at me dumbfounded, and then shrieked, Maya! I looked up and saw that the maid, dressed in a plain, worn-out uniform with her hair in two simple buns, was none other than my cousin Lila. I thought for a moment and understood. Lila had been accepted as an outer disciple. For the first 3 years, if she didn't get selected for the inner circle, she'd be stuck doing menial chores like this. As they say, a prime minister's heart is big enough to sail a boat in. With my current status, my perspective had broadened considerably, and I wasn't particularly bothered by our past. Besides, I had her rumors to thank for being chosen as the matriarch's personal protégé. I nodded at her. Are you doing well here at the menagerie? You bitch. What are you pretending for? Lila's gaze swept from the divine jade pin in my hair to the flowing gown I wore. The brilliant red was like a needle piercing her eyes. The teapot fell from her hands, shattering on the floor. Deas plus het everywhere. Lila staggered back, stepping into the puddle. You promiscuous slut. What right do you have to sit here? Promiscuous? Hearing her say that, I lowered my head in shame. You flatter me. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. You. Lila was speechless. The other people in the room turned their gazes to me, murmuring, so this is the famous Maya. No wonder Matriarch Alara took her as a protégé. She certainly has the looks for it. What are you all talking about? This disgusting woman. Do you know how many men she slept with back in the mortal world? Lila screamed, her voice shrill. The other disciples seemed even more impressed. So diligent. Matriarch Alara must be very pleased. Indeed, indeed. It seems the star of this generation belongs to the Academy of Bliss. Hey, you don't know. I was there the day she reported to the Summit Hall. A top-tier wood affinity. We haven't seen one like her in 100 years. If she wasn't so set on her path, I would have tried to snatch her from my Skyfire clan. Lila clutched her head, on the verge of a breakdown. What are you all talking about? She's a degenerate. She only got into the Academy of Bliss by seducing an examiner. Heh, a top-tier wood affinity needs to seduce someone? You little girl don't know anything. What nonsense are you spouting? Brother Cole, is this how the menagerie trains its disciples? Brother Adrian flicked his sleeve coldly. Someone, drag her away. No. Are you all insane? This woman has no virtue, she's a common slut. Why are you all defending her? Lila shrieked hysterically, completely unhinged. The other disciples looked at her strangely. How do you not even get this? There are 3,000 paths to power, and pleasure is one of them. In the world of mages, strength is all that matters, not some bullshit concept of chastity. Exactly. You're so chaste? And yet you're here serving tea. In our world, power is everything. The rest is secondary. The disciples from the various academies all chimed in, condemning my cousin. I looked around, a warmth spreading through my chest. The matriarch was right. The world of mages was completely different from the mortal world. When the Academy of Bliss was first established, it faced a lot of criticism. But if anyone said a word against them, the Academy would respond with deadly force. After enough people were killed, everyone else's minds automatically came around. Emperors have 3,000 concubines, yet who dares call them promiscuous and vile? The Academy of Bliss uses people as catalysts and pleasure as a means to achieve supreme power. What's wrong with that? As long as you are strong enough, no matter how outrageous your actions, people will automatically find a way to justify them. Those so-called concepts of chastity were only used to restrain weak mortal women. They didn't even apply to men, and they were even more useless in the world of mages. It was a pity that my cousin, after 6 months as a servant, was still stuck in that mortal mindset, completely oblivious to the rules of this new world. My cousin was dragged away and thrown into the servants' quarters, furious to the point of madness. She grabbed a fellow disciple and began ranting wildly about me. A slut like that gets to be the personal protégé of the matriarch of the Academy of Bliss. What is wrong with this world? The person she was talking to was Chloe, the girl I had met at the Summit Hall. Chloe sighed and tried to comfort her. I didn't think the magic world would fall for this kind of thing either. Life is so unfair. If we were willing to be that shameless, would we be any worse than Maya? Maya will do anything to climb the ladder. That seductive, trashy act she puts on. Even if someone taught us, we wouldn't stoop that low. Lila fumed. If sleeping with men makes you a personal protege, then what's the difference between being a mage and being a prostitute? Chloe nodded vigorously. Exactly. It's disgusting. The only reason we failed is because we're virtuous and pure, not cheap like her. The two exchanged a look, a shared sense of melancholic camaraderie washing over them. Does every man really fall for that act? Is there nothing we can do about Maya? Chloe's eyes suddenly lit up. I've got it. There's one academy that doesn't really care about the Academy of Bliss. They say that 20 years ago, a female cultivator from the Academy of Bliss tried to seduce Master Julian from the Ethereum. After she repeatedly teased him, she finally pushed him too far, and he drew his sword and killed her. The two academies have been at odds ever since. If Maya tries to seduce him this time, do you think Julian will be able to tolerate it? Lila hesitated. Maya should know better than to provoke Master Julian, right? Chloe sneered. With a tramp like her, you never know. Let's just give her a little push. The banquet was almost over, and I still hadn't found a chance to get close to Julian. I had managed to exchange a few words with him, but his expression remained cool and distant. As I was starting to worry, I saw a maid approach Julian and whisper something to him. He got up and left, and I immediately followed. Julian was standing by a hot spring, frowning at the maid next to him. Are you sure there's a vermilion bird egg here? The maid nodded. Yes, it was specially reserved for you, Master Julian. No one else knows. The vermilion bird is one of the 4 great mythical beasts, a fire-type creature known for its fierce temperament. It won't submit easily. To tame it as a mount, one must drip blood on the egg the moment it hatches to form a bond. Vermilion bird eggs are often laid in hot springs, so Julian, suspecting nothing, nodded and sat cross-legged by the edge of the pool. I watched from a distance for a while. Just then, a young maid crept up behind me. Senior Sister Maya, Master Julian is calling for you. Oh, right now. I'd been here for a while and hadn't seen Julian say a word. But whatever. If he was willing to talk to me, this was my chance. I lifted my skirt, swayed my hips, and glided toward Julian. Master Julian. The moment I spoke, a massive green tentacle shot out of the hot spring, lunging for Julian. But for some reason, Julian just sat there motionless. In my shock, I threw myself forward and wrapped my arms around his waist. The tentacle coiled around both of us, dragging us into the pool. I choked on a mouthful of water and in a panic, wrapped my legs around Julian's waist. Master Julian, are you okay? Julian's face was flushed. He snapped his eyes open, a dark, dangerous light swirling in his usually cold gaze. He clamped a hand around my neck, his grip tightening. You witch. You dare to drug me. I didn't. Don't insult me. Does the Academy of Bliss even need to drug people? Julian froze, a flicker of clarity in his eyes before it was swallowed by a deeper darkness. Someone set me up. This isn't a vermilion bird egg in the water, it's Serpent's Desire Vine. Serpent's Desire Vine is an extremely rare plant. When it blooms, it releases a special fragrance that clouds the mind. The higher one's power and the more focused one's mind, the more susceptible they are. Weaker individuals are often unaffected. Julian panted, his hands on my shoulders, his jade-like knuckles white from the force of his grip. If you didn't set me up, then help me out of here. I will be sure to reward you handsomely. I blinked, tightening my legs around him and shifting forward until I pressed against something hard. I'm sorry, Master Julian, but I can't let you go. Julian's pupils contracted violently. What are you doing? You. It was now or never. While Julian was too weak to resist, I used every skill I had learned to desperately entangle him. Master Julian, if you're really unwilling, I can't force you. I moved closer, panting as I licked his neck. I saw a fire ignite in his eyes, burning away his reason inch by inch, leaving only endless desire. All his struggles and resistance were futile. The hot spring water was scalding. The vines beneath us swayed, and my body moved with them. I clung to Julian's shoulders, tilting my head back, the arch of my neck as taut as a trembling bowstring. The matriarch hadn't lied. This was truly exhilarating. At the final moment, I felt an incredibly potent surge of energy pour into my body, coursing through my limbs. Adept 3rd level, Adept 4th level, Adept 5th level, Adept Mastery. One barrier after another shattered. Then, a golden light erupted from within my core. I was stunned. Golden core stage. How was that possible? We were both at the golden core stage. How could 10% of Julian's power be enough to push me to the same level? You've already reached the ascendant stage? All desire vanished in an instant. I scrambled off Julian, my clothes in tatters, and bolted away in a panic. Master Julian, Matriarch, help me. Once his mind cleared, Julian finally broke free from the serpent's desire vine and chased after me, sword in hand. You witch. You dare to make my cultivation fall from the ascendant stage? I'll kill you to quell the hatred in my heart. A flash of red and a fragrant breeze landed in front of me. Matriarch Alara burst into laughter. Golden core. Heavens, Maya, my little block of wood, you are truly my treasure. You've only been cultivating for half a year, and you're already at the golden core stage. Ha ha ha. What nonsense about Ethereum prodigies. Compared to my Academy of Bliss, they're nothing. Cole stuck his tongue out at Julian. Nothing. 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 With Matriarch Alara present, Julian obviously couldn't harm me. But the Ethereum wouldn't let this go, demanding an explanation from the menagerie. The menagerie conducted an investigation and quickly singled out my cousin and Chloe. It was these two wretched maids who set the trap. Here they are. It has nothing to do with us. The headmasters of the Ethereum and the Academy of Bliss sat at the head of the room. The chamber was filled with elders and deacons from both academies, the oppressive atmosphere so thick you could cut it with a knife. Lila and Chloe knelt on the floor, trembling. The Ethereum's headmaster, barely suppressing his fury, questioned Lila. Are you from the Academy of Bliss? Lila stammered. Huh? No, I'm not. Julian told me everything that happened. Ahem. Maya was clearly still a virgin. Why did you spread those rumors at the summit hall? If you hadn't, with Maya's talent, why would she have chosen any academy other than ours? Matriarch Alara chimed in with a sincere expression. Indeed. If it weren't for your slanderous rumors, I wouldn't have made a special trip to take Maya as my personal protege. So, in a way, we have you to thank for finding us such a wonderful talent. Cole added. Thank you, thank you. Lila's face went ashen. She clutched her chest. Her success was because of me? The Ethereum's headmaster growled. You wretched girl. Your baseless rumors cost us such a great talent. When Julian came back and told me, I found it so strange. A wood affinity who didn't choose our academy's divine wood heart method? It turns out it was all your fault. Julian coughed. Master, that's all in the past. The Ethereum headmaster snorted. Humph. What did the Academy of Bliss promise you? And today you set this trap, causing my disciple to lose hundreds of years of cultivation. I looked at my cousin earnestly. Cousin, if it weren't for your help today, I never would have had the chance to get Julian. Thank you so much. Cole chanted. Thank you, thank you. Lila swayed, her face ghastly pale, and she suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. It wasn't supposed to be like this. You slut. You seduced Master Julian. You were supposed to die by his sword. I shook my head, my face a mask of pity. But I ran fast, and my master was there to protect me. Even if she hadn't been, I'm the personal protege of the matriarch of the Academy of Bliss. Julian wouldn't have dared to kill me. Cole taunted. Didn't see that coming, did you? Didn't see that coming. You tried to steal a chicken but lost the rice you used as bait. Haha, you truly are Maya's greatest benefactor. On behalf of the Academy of Bliss, I thank you. Lila let out a desperate, guttural scream. No. The Ethereum couldn't take their anger out on me, so they vented it all on my cousin. They destroyed her and Chloe's magical cores, expelled them from the Academy, and threw them back into the mortal world. Lila went mad, often muttering to herself in empty spaces. It was all my fault. I'm the reason Matriarch Alara noticed her. Why didn't I spread rumors about myself? Why didn't I just say it was me? A few men were drinking in a pavilion, laughing and chatting. Did you hear? Maya, the girl from Pine Creek who got into a top-tier academy last year, just won first place in the inter-academy tournament. Wow. I thought she just slept her way to the top. How can she be that powerful? Heh, that was all just jealous rumors. The strong prove themselves. Those rumors fell apart on their own. Lila lunged at the men, screaming as she clawed at them. Nonsense. It was me. I was the one who seduced the examiner. I'm the matriarch's personal protege. I'm the one who won first place. Where did this crazy woman come from? Seduce an examiner? With your looks? Do you think a mage would even glance at you? Get lost. The men ganged up on Lila, beating her until she was black and blue. She lay on the ground, face up, tears and blood streaming down her face. Suddenly, a blue bird flew across the sky. I stood on the back of a crane, dressed in my red gown, a long sword in my hand. I turned my head and shouted, Master Julian, I didn't even get that much this time. Why do you keep chasing me? Julian's voice echoed back. Damn you. I just got back to the ascendant stage and you knocked me down again. I'm going to kill you. Lila staggered to her feet, her hands outstretched as she ran after them. Master Julian, wait for me. I started cultivating for you. Master Julian, all of this, it should have been mine. With a splash, Lila lost her footing and fell into the river, her hands flailing desperately as she bobbed in the waves. The two figures in the sky moved with incredible speed, vanishing in a flash. Soon, they were gone from her sight. The only thing left in the sky were the leisurely drifting white clouds, a distant place she could never reach. End of part. In an ancient village at the foot of the Appalachian Mountains, there is a secret ritual. They use adult women to fish for Sasquatch. This time, the village has chosen me. If I'm lucky, I'll get pregnant and give birth to the hope of the entire village. But this time their luck has run out, because they don't know that I am the last true geomancer. Heavy rain poured down in the mountains, striking the ground and kicking up a fine mist. I shielded my eyes with one hand, squinting at the road sign ahead. Sasquatch Hollow, Hatter's Creek. Leo, this is it. We found it. Leo let out a breath of relief, wiping the rain from his face. What kind of village is this? It's impossible to find. He was right. The Appalachian forests were dense, with giant trees whose canopies blotted out the sun. The satellite map clearly showed the village was nearby, but it had taken us 2 solid hours just to spot the sign. The rain's too heavy. Let's just get into the village first. My name is Joanna Shaw, but everyone calls me Jo. I'm a junior at a university back east, and I'm also the last living heir to the art of geomancy. Geomancers, in ancient times, were also known as masters of feng shui. As the saying goes, the best geomancers read the stars, the second best follow the water, and the third rate just walk the earth. Most of the so-called masters you find these days are just ordinary practitioners. Those who could master the art of reading the stars and sensing atmospheric energy once served in the imperial court, working for emperors. My family, the Shaws, were the heads of the Imperial Astronomical Bureau for generations, and hereditary leaders of the Geomancers Guild. This time, my friend Leo and I came to the Smoky Mountains to find a specific medicinal herb. A local guide told us about a village called Hatter's Creek, where the villagers made a living by gathering herbs and sold all sorts of rare plants. The village was nestled in a mountain valley, accessible only by a single narrow path. The path was a muddy mess. My hiking boots were caked in so much mud they looked like they'd been dipped in clay. Both Leo and I were a mess by the time we arrived. Why is this place called Sasquatch Hollow? Joe, do you think there are really Sasquatches here? The Appalachians have always been rife with legends of cryptids. They say these creatures are covered in reddish-brown fur, stand incredibly tall, averaging 7 feet, and are bloodthirsty and cruel. They love to eat people, and when they capture their prey, they let out a strange, deafening laugh. Over the years, countless media outlets and research teams have come looking for them, but they've all come up empty. Who knows if it was all just villagers spinning tall tales? As Leo and I were talking, an angry shout suddenly came from nearby. It's not a tall tale. They're real. I've seen one. I looked up to see a 7 or 8-year-old boy squatting under a large tree at the village entrance. He was staring at us with red-rimmed eyes. With rain this heavy, what was a kid doing playing under a tree by himself? I walked over to the boy and pulled a chocolate bar from my bag to humor him. Oh really? Where do you see one? The boy took the chocolate and wiped his runny nose. My great-granduncle caught one. Puffed, and I've seen a unicorn. I pretended to snatch the chocolate back. The boy immediately got angry and kicked my shin. Give it back. You mean lady? I'm gonna tie you up and take you to the mountains to fish for Sasquatch. Wyatt, what nonsense are you talking? A stout middle-aged woman rushed over, her face pale. She grabbed the boy and gave his bottom several hard smacks, making him wail. Leo and I said a few words to calm the situation. The boy's mother relaxed a little and asked what we were doing in the village. When she heard we were there to buy herbs, her eyes lit up, and she enthusiastically grabbed my arm. Well, what a coincidence. That 7-leaf nightshade you mentioned, we sell it at my house. Come on, let's go take a look. Mrs. Miller's house was at the far end of the village, closest to the mountains behind it. It was only late May, but the temperature in the mountains was much lower than outside. Leo and I were wearing professional waterproof jackets with long sleeves underneath. But the boy and Mrs. Miller were both wearing short sleeves. Wyatt was even running around barefoot, happily splashing beside us. The village was full of old red brick houses with high courtyard walls. We occasionally passed other kids who, like Wyatt, were running barefoot in the rain. All our kids are like this. They're used to it from a young age. Tough as nails and healthy as can be. Honey, we have customers here for herbs. Mrs. Miller opened the courtyard gate and bustled around, pouring us tea and offering water. Her house was built differently from the others. The first floor was raised about 6 feet off the ground, hollow underneath, sort of like a stilt house. The ceiling was densely packed with hanging herbs. A man was looking up, sorting through them. Hearing why we were there, he pulled a dried stalk from the pile and pointed to its leaves. This is 7-leaf nightshade. I know where it grows. I can take you there. But the place is far. You have to cross several mountains to get there. It's a lot of work. To make one trip. The man glanced at Mrs. Miller, cleared his throat, and held up one finger. $10,000 and I'll take you. 10,000? That's so cheap. Deal. Before I could even haggle, Leo had sealed the deal. Of the 4 people present, 3 of us, myself and the Millers, instantly looked annoyed. I was mad we'd overpaid. They were mad they'd asked for too little. Damn it. This market disrupting rich kid. I could have gotten a guide for 5,000 easy. Leo had cash on him. After getting the money, Mrs. Miller cheerfully prepared a meal for us and set up our rooms. The forecast called for 2 more days of rain. We'd wait for my other friend, Flora, to arrive tomorrow, and then we could set out as soon as the rain stopped. Our room was on the 3rd floor. There was a bathroom at the end of the hall. I grabbed my change of clothes and went to take a shower. The bathroom had an old-fashioned design, with small white tiles and a grimy shower curtain separating the shower area. I flipped the light switch, but the bulb overhead flickered and went out. It wasn't dark yet, but the overcast rainy day made visibility low. The bathroom was dim, but I could still see well enough. A broken light wasn't a big deal. I put my clothes on a chair and went to pull back the shower curtain. The moment I did, my scalp tingled and my heart stopped. What the hell? Who are you? A young girl was standing in the shower. She was about my age, wearing a bright red dress, her long hair hanging loose. Her face was painted with colorful, garish makeup. Her lips were painted black, and her eyeshadow was a sickly green. It was both bizarre and terrifying. When I spoke, the girl's eyes darted around, but she didn't say a word, just stood there motionless. Mom. Jenny's trying to scare me again. Mom, come quick. Wyatt shouted from the top of the stairs. A moment later, Mrs. Miller rushed up, grabbed the girl's ear and dragged her out. Get back to your room and stay there. I'm so sorry. My daughter, she's not all there in the head. Mrs. Miller apologized profusely. I didn't think much of it. After my shower, Wyatt was back to following me around. I asked him curiously, "What's wrong with your sister?" Wyatt clapped his hands. My sister's going to marry a Sasquatch. Right. No point trying to have a normal conversation with a kid this obsessed with cryptids. Wyatt followed me wherever I went, and he was getting on my nerves. Do you like playing in the water? Yeah. Do you like playing in the mud? Wyatt's eyes lit up, and he nodded vigorously. Yeah. Then go wash my hiking boots for me. See, they're covered in mud. I handed Wyatt the boots and a brush, then shut the bathroom door, leaving him to scrub them for me. Finally, a moment of peace. I looked out the hallway window and saw Mrs. Miller and her husband standing by the main gate, seemingly arguing. Mrs. Miller was crying, and Mr. Miller was pacing anxiously. There's nothing I can do. It's the village rules. What's the use in crying? You think I'm not sad to lose Jenny? You think I want this? But we can't just use someone else to take her place. The sound of the rain was too loud, and their conversation was intermittent. I couldn't hear everything clearly. As I watched them, they seemed to sense me and both looked up at the third floor. Startled, I gave them a little wave. Leo, do you get the feeling that the people in this village are incredibly strong? The rain is so loud, and we weren't talking loudly when we arrived, but Wyatt heard us clearly from under that tree. And it's pretty cold today. Look at what you're wearing. I saw Mr. and Mrs. Miller downstairs, and they're both in short sleeves. Mr. Miller's even barefoot. Leo, who had just finished his shower, was putting on a light jacket. He paused, his handsome face flushing slightly. Joe, I'm pretty strong too, you know. He took off the jacket, tossed it on a table, and even lifted the hem of his t-shirt to flash his abs. I rolled my eyes. Fine, I'm the only weak one here. What are you showing off for? Leo fell silent. A little while later, Mrs. Miller called us down for dinner. On the table was a platter of cured meat, glistening with oil and stir-fried with green onions. The aroma was intoxicating. Wyatt was practically drooling, but he didn't dare touch the dish. Mr. and Mrs. Miller also hadn't picked up their chopsticks, but were watching us with an expression of nervous anticipation. I took a bite of the cured meat. It was incredibly tough and chewy, with a strange, gamey flavor that wasn't like pork. I ate several pieces. This is delicious, Mrs. Miller. What kind of meat is this? Mrs. Miller and her husband exchanged a look. She smiled, the crow's feet around her eyes crinkling. It's Sasquatch meat. I thought I must have misheard. What meat? Mr. Miller looked at me gravely. Sasquatch meat. Joanna, once you've eaten Sasquatch meat, you have to become a Sasquatch's bride. The young girl, who had been hiding behind a pillar watching us, finally showed some life in her eyes when she heard her parents. Mom, does that mean I don't have to go fish for the Sasquatch? This lady will go for me. Mrs. Miller nodded, hugging her daughter with relief. That's right. My little Jenny doesn't have to go. Oh Mom, that's wonderful. The mother and daughter hugged and cried, a touching scene. Wyatt was jumping up and down beside them. After listening for a while, I finally understood the twisted custom of this ancient village. Every 10 years, the village selects a newly adult woman and sends her into the mountains to fish for a Sasquatch. I didn't know the specifics of the fishing method, but they would dress the girl in a red dress, paint her face with colorful makeup, and feed her Sasquatch meat. After eating the meat, her body would emit a special scent. They would take her deep into the mountains, and the Sasquatch would automatically come to find her. The chosen girl would either be torn to pieces on the spot or dragged into the mountains to face an even more terrifying fate. Naturally, the family would be heartbroken, but for years, the village had been following this rule without any opposition. That was the strange part. They must be getting some huge benefit from this, a benefit so great they'd risk losing a daughter rather than move away. Jenny, go wash your face and change out of that dress. Give it to this lady. Okay. I'll go right now. Jenny skipped away happily. The Millers both turned to look at me. I cleared my throat. Is it possible that I don't agree to this? It's not up to you to agree or not. Mrs. Miller rolled up her sleeves and grabbed my arm. As the heir to the Geomancers, I'd been trained in self-defense since I was a child. I could handle 2 or 3 regular men easily. I casually blocked her and our arms collided. The next second, I let out a scream. My God, is your arm made of steel? I had never expected a seemingly ordinary middle-aged woman to have such immense strength. Soon Leo and I were subdued by the couple. Mr. Miller chopped up a handful of herbs and forced them into my mouth. Within moments, my tongue went numb, and my whole body became stiff and immobile. Leo was also fed the drug and tossed aside. Mrs. Miller brought out the paints and began carefully drawing on my face, sighing as she worked. Don't blame me. A child is a parent's whole world. I can't bear to send my Jenny to her death. If you're lucky and you encounter a male Sasquatch, you might not die. The makeup was intricate. Mrs. Miller painted meticulously for an hour, until the sky was completely dark. Mr. Miller carried Leo to the living room sofa, and then the couple took me to the village's ancestral hall. Two grim-faced old men stood at the entrance. One of them was the great-grand-uncle Wyatt had mentioned. When he saw me, he nodded at the Millers. All right, you can go back now. Come back tomorrow morning to see Jenny off. I was about the same size as Jenny, and with my face painted like a ghost, my features were unrecognizable. The villagers had no suspicion. Mrs. Miller pretended to wipe away a few tears, patted my hand, and then left reluctantly with her husband. I was helped into the ancestral hall, my steps mechanical. When I saw the statue inside, I was shocked. The statue had the head of a bull and the body of a man, and it was holding a bundle of herbs. Was this Chiyu? Why would a village in the Appalachian Mountains be worshipping a Chinese war demon? Seeing me stare at the statue, the old man next to me snorted in displeasure. Jenny, that is a statue of the horned god of the harvest. What kind of look is that? Show some respect. To be chosen to go into the mountains is a blessing. The horned god of the harvest? I suddenly understood. In some ancient texts, the agricultural deity Shinnon was also depicted as bull-headed. A related myth stated, Chiyu is of the Jiang clan, a descendant of the Flame Emperor. Chiyu and the Flame Emperor both belonged to the same clan, and shared the bull-headed appearance. It wasn't so strange after all. The villagers performed a complex ceremony. They made me kneel before the statue while they chanted, thanking the horned god for blessing the village with health and prosperity. Then they had me sit by a fire, and every time they finished a chant, they'd throw a handful of herbs into the flames. For the Xiaoyang and the Gugu, an eternal bond. A group of people circled around me. The smoke was thick and acrid, making my head spin. Soon, I drifted off to sleep in the chair. When I woke up, the sky was just beginning to lighten. The old man beside me, Elder Hemlock, tucked a dagger into my belt, and then slipped a bamboo tube over each of my forearms. I was completely bewildered. Elder Hemlock leaned in and whispered, If the Sasquatch grabs your shoulders, don't resist. That is your blessing. If it grabs your wrists, pull your hands out of the tubes and stab it in the eyes. To be honest, I was a little skeptical. The Sasquatch legend was ancient, and so many people had failed to find one. I had no idea what these villagers were up to. I was helped to my feet and placed in a sedan chair carried by 4 villagers. They left through the back door of the hall and headed up the mountain. The entire village came out to see us off. The Millers stood at the front, dressed in new clothes supported on either side. Mrs. Miller was sobbing so hard she collapsed against her husband, and other villagers rushed to comfort her. After a few minutes of crying, Elder Hemlock waved his hand, and the procession started again. The terrain grew steeper. The morning mist hung in the air, thin as gauze, and the air was crisp and clear. I took a deep breath and felt some strength return to my limbs. My mind cleared. I looked down at the bamboo tubes on my arms. Something about them felt strangely, disturbingly familiar. As we walked, the villagers kept their heads down, silent. The mountain became higher and steeper, the path more treacherous. But the villagers carrying the sedan chair were as strong as oxen, moving as if on flat ground. With that kind of strength, they could make a fortune working construction. Finally, a narrow valley appeared ahead, flanked by steep cliffs that formed a thin slit of sky. The valley entrance was choked with a dense thicket of vines and thorns. The villagers took out machetes, hacked through the vines, and entered through the narrow opening. After about 100 yards, the view opened up. Before us was a flat, grassy area about the size of a football field. In the middle stood a colossal tree. I had never seen a tree so large in my life. The trunk was massive, at least 6 feet in diameter. A dense network of vines extended from its canopy to the tops of the surrounding cliffs, like a giant net covering the entire valley. Elder Hemlock waved his hand, signaling the others to put me down. While I was still gaping, All the villagers immediately retreated from the valley and stood guard at the entrance. I circled the tree, about to take a closer look, when a fierce wind suddenly kicked up. The branches and vines overhead began to shake violently. The next second, with a loud thump, a huge dark shape dropped from the sky and landed beside me. The vines overhead grew thicker, but a few slivers of light filtered through the leaves, illuminating the monster before me. It stood on 2 legs, about 7 feet tall, with long arms covered in reddish-brown fur. Its elbows and knees were bent inward, the opposite of a human's. But the most bizarre thing was its face. It was about 70% human-like, but its mouth was enormous, taking up the entire lower half of its face. Its upper lip was curled back, almost covering its nose. Seeing me, the Sasquatch began to laugh. Hee hee hee. Its mouth gaped open, releasing a thick, foul stench. As it laughed, it reached out and grabbed my wrist, its hand closing right over the bamboo tube. I immediately pulled my hand free from the tube and reached for the dagger at my waist. But in the next instant, something changed. The Sasquatch leaned in, stared at me for a few seconds, then let go of the bamboo tube. Both of its hands shot out and clamped down on my shoulders. An immense force crushed down on me. I felt like my bones were about to be shattered. A sharp pain shot through my arm, and my hand went limp, the dagger clattering to the ground. Hee 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 hee. The Sasquatch threw its head back and laughed even louder. Bits of animal flesh and fur stuck between its sharp teeth. Outside the valley, the villagers erupted in cheers. Elder Hemlock was so emotional he was crying, slapping his thigh. Excellent. After all these years, another one has been chosen by the Sasquatch. The heavens have blessed Hatter's Creek. As the villagers cheered, the Sasquatch gripped my shoulders, slung me over its back, and began to climb the tree with swift, powerful movements. Soon, we disappeared into the dense canopy. At the top of the tree, the Sasquatch set me down and pointed forward. I looked down and was stunned. The trunk of the tree was hollow. From the top, it looked like a giant, dark pit, its depths lost in shadow. The Sasquatch laughed again. It grabbed a thick vine, hoisted me with one hand, and began to slide down into the darkness. We slid for a long time before finally landing. The Sasquatch put me down and stared at me with a wide, grinning expression. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I looked around. I was standing on a massive pile of white bones, stacked as high as a small hill. Not far away was a large nest of dried grass, which seemed to be the Sasquatch's lair. The Sasquatch reached for me again. I grabbed a nearby leg bone and swung it at its head with all my might. The creature dodged nimbly, let out an angry cry, and lunged for me again. Just then, a rustling sound came from the pile of dry grass nearby. In the silent tree hollow, the sound of fabric rubbing against straw was startlingly loud. The Sasquatch froze, glancing fearfully at the grass pile. It grabbed a vine and quickly scrambled back out of the hole. I tightened my grip on the leg bone, my eyes fixed on the pile of grass. Who's there? H. A low, hoarse rasp came from the grass. The pile moved more violently. I swallowed hard, a strange sense of dread washing over me. The opening above was mostly covered by the canopy, with only a few rays of light filtering down. Dust motes danced in the light beams. I took a deep breath and pressed my back against the tree trunk. In a deep, enclosed space like this, if whatever was in there was more dangerous than the Sasquatch, I had nowhere to run. My eyes were wide open, fixed on the grass pile. Finally, the top layer of grass shifted, and a hand shot out. The skin was pale and bluish, the fingers long and thin. The wrist was emaciated, and the nails were almost as long as the fingers, curled into strange shapes. Oh great! A zombie? If so, I'm not worried. I had just started to relax when the hand pushed aside the grass and a woman sat up. Her hair was a matted, straw-like mess that covered most of her face. She pushed her hair back with her fingers, revealing a gaunt, skeletal face. She was so thin her cheekbones jutted out, making her eyes look abnormally large. She was staring at me with a vacant expression. I was shocked. It wasn't a zombie or a ghost. It was a woman. A living woman. I waved at her, cautiously asking, "Hey, who are you? How did you end up here?" She stared at me in disbelief, letting out a few more hoarse sounds before she could finally speak. her voice slow and rusty. A person. Her eyes scanned my body, and she suddenly became agitated. Hatter's Creek? You're from Hatter's Creek too. I then noticed she was wearing the same style of red dress as me. Although the fabric was tattered and faded, the wide shoulder straps were identical. She became hysterical, crying and screaming, her fists clenched. After she calmed down, I moved closer to talk to her. I learned that she had been sent into the mountains 20 years ago. 20 years ago, Jenny Miller was only 19 when her own father delivered her to Sasquatch Hollow. They're monsters. They're not human. This whole village eats women's flesh and drinks their blood. They're all monsters. Jenny's face was contorted with a furious, all-consuming hatred. She explained that the custom had been going on for generations. Every 10 years, the village would send a woman to Sasquatch Hollow. They would put bamboo tubes on her arms. When the Sasquatch saw its prey, it would grab the tubes and laugh in triumph. While the Sasquatch was distracted, the woman was supposed to pull her hands free and stab it in the eyes. The eyes were the Sasquatch's greatest weakness. An eye injury would enrage the creature, and it would tear the woman to pieces in an instant. The villagers waiting outside the valley would then rush in with their hunting rifles. After capturing the Sasquatch, they would butcher it and distribute the meat to every person in the village, who would then cure it. The men who ate the meat became incredibly strong, with sharp hearing and eyesight, and rarely got sick. When women were pregnant with boys, they would also be given Sasquatch meat several times, which would improve their own health and ensure their sons were born exceptionally strong. I finally understood. No wonder I couldn't even beat Mrs. Miller. That was the reason. Because of their superhuman strength, the villagers of Hatter's Creek could always harvest rare wild herbs that others couldn't reach. Every family in the village was well off. On top of that, they were healthy and free from illness. The temptation was too great for them to ever consider leaving. Usually, when a Sasquatch caught a woman, it would eat her after its triumphant laugh. For some reason, Jenny had been taken back to its nest and had been trapped here for 20 years. I felt a great deal of sympathy for her and reached out to help her up. Can you stand? The Sasquatch is gone. I'll help you escape. Jenny shook her head, her expression numb. This is Sasquatch Hollow. There's no escape. Thick vines as wide as my wrist hung down from the opening of the tree hollow. I grabbed one and gave it a tug, then motioned to Jenny. We can climb out using these. It's not hard. Want to try? Jenny lowered her head, clearly uncooperative. Fine. I'd figure out a way to get out myself first. Once I met up with Flora, I'd come back for her. I grabbed a vine, pushed off the tree trunk with my feet, and easily climbed up a good distance. I feel stronger. Was it because I ate the Sasquatch meat? What an unexpected surprise. This ordeal wasn't for nothing. I climbed happily for a while, and was soon close to the top. Just then, Jenny called out from below. Joanna, you can do it. The long tree trunk acted like a megaphone, her voice echoing out of the hollow and across the entire valley. Immediately, the branches above me began to shake violently. A dark shadow descended from the sky, and a massive hand swatted at my head. If it connected, I'd have a concussion at the very least. I quickly let go of the vine, my body plummeting downward. On the way down, I managed to grab another vine to slow my descent. Even so, I still hit the ground hard, a sharp, piercing pain shooting through my lower back. I lay there, grimacing in pain, unable to move for a while. The Sasquatch jumped down to the ground and let out a threatening roar at me. I quickly waved my hands. Okay, I won't run. I won't do it again. The Sasquatch ignored me and walked over to Jenny, holding out a handful of bright red fruits in a gesture of offering. Jenny didn't take them, but pointed coldly to the side. Put them there. I'll get them myself. The Sasquatch did as she said, then walked back over to me, letting out its strange hee-hee-hee laugh. Its dark eyes glowed with a faint green light in the dim hollow, glittering with a predatory, masculine energy. I instinctively sensed something was wrong. I rolled to the side and formed a hand seal for a lightning spell. By the azure beginning and the sacred pact, let the twin energies merge into one. 5 thunders, heed my call. Gather now and let your fury fall. A thumb-sized bolt of lightning struck the Sasquatch. It yelped in surprise. Lightning is effective against evil spirits, but the Sasquatch was a physical being. Its fur was singed, but the damage was minimal. It patted its chest, realized it wasn't seriously hurt, and lunged at me again. I ran in circles, occasionally firing off a lightning bolt, feeling like I was in a cheap monster movie. I didn't have any of my gear. The number of spells I could cast empty-handed was limited. After a while, I was exhausted. I swung the leg bone one more time to fend it off, feeling completely spent. I looked at the bone in my hand and gritted my teeth. This place had been a tomb for countless people over the years. If I had to, I could perform a ritual to summon their souls. 1,000 wailing ghosts should be enough to take care of one Sasquatch. I formed the hand seal, but just then, a sharp pain shot through my ear as a goo bug crawled out. The bug flew toward the opening of the hollow. At the same time, I heard faint shouts from outside. "Joanna! Joanna!" "Flora?" My spirits lifted. I immediately banged the leg bone against the tree trunk and yelled, "Flora, I'm in here." Inside the tree. The Sasquatch also heard the intruders. It beat its chest and let out a furious roar, then scrambled up a vine and out of the hollow. A moment later, the sounds of a fierce battle erupted outside. I quickly grabbed a vine about to climb up, but Jenny called out to me. She sat on the pile of grass, her face pleading. "Your friends are here to save you? Joanna, take me with you. Please help me." Jenny propped herself up, one hand on the wall of the trunk, and slowly stood. At that moment, a ray of sunlight broke through the clouds and shone down through the leaves, illuminating her. I stared at her, my scalp prickling with horror. Jenny's limbs were thin and skeletal, but her stomach was massively swollen, as if she were about to give birth. Seeing me stare at her belly, Jenny looked down, her voice trembling with tears. "Take me out of here." "Okay." I sighed and went over to support her arm. I looped a vine under her armpits, tied a secure knot at her chest, then climbed another vine to the top of the tree and pulled her up after me. As we neared the top, I noticed a strange symbol carved into the inner trunk. Jenny looked up at me nervously. "Joanna, what do you see?" "Nothing." I shook my head and reached out to touch the symbol. It seemed to be painted on with some unknown substance. As I touched it, most of it smudged away. Suppressing a flicker of doubt, I kept climbing. We soon reached the top, sat on a branch, and then I helped Jenny up. From the top of the tree, we wrapped the vines around our waists and slowly lowered ourselves down, taking a moment to survey the battle below. Leo was fighting the Sasquatch. Or rather, he was being beaten up by the Sasquatch. The creature threw a punch, and Leo went flying, his body slamming into a tree trunk. The contents of his backpack spilled everywhere. My eyes lit up. I jumped down and snatched up my lightning-struck wood tablet. "Nice job, Leo." "Joanna." Leo was overjoyed and rushed over to hug me. "You scared me to death. I'm so glad you're okay." "Look at you, what a coward. It's just one Sasquatch. What's there to be afraid of? Stand back and watch this." I pushed Leo away, grabbed a few paper talismans, chanted a fire incantation, and flung them at the Sasquatch. The talismans stuck to its back, and its fur immediately burst into flames. The creature shrieked in pain and rolled on the ground. Flora let out a sigh of relief. She waved her hand, and a swarm of large rats appeared from nowhere, pouncing on the Sasquatch and tearing at it viciously. Besides the rats, poisonous insects began to crawl out of the ground, centipedes, lizards, and all sorts of unidentifiable bugs, swarming the creature. The Sasquatch thrashed and roared in desperation, but soon its body went limp, and it lay motionless on the ground. I walked over to Flora and clapped her on the shoulder. "You're the best, sister." "Ah, a ghost." Flora suddenly screamed, slapping me across the face and sending me stumbling. I got up, glaring at her angrily. "What was that for?" "Joanna." Flora patted her chest, feigning annoyance. "Geez, you scared the life out of me. Why is your face painted like a ghost?" Seeing me still glaring, Flora came over and linked her arm with mine. "Come on, I didn't mean it. Ask Leo if you don't believe me." "Leo, my friend, with Joanna's face painted like that. Could you even recognize her?" Leo nodded, glancing at me shyly, a faint blush on his handsome face. "She's still beautiful." Flora was speechless. I was even more furious. Damn it, I knew you did it on purpose. I reached out to pinch her cheek. Flora darted away, and as we chased each other, Leo's face suddenly turned deathly pale. Stop fooling around, Joanna. Joanna. Leo's voice was filled with terror, as if he had seen something horrifying. That kid needs to grow a spine. I stopped and followed his gaze. A cold chill ran down my spine. We were in a valley surrounded by sheer cliffs. A few cypress trees clung to the rock face, but otherwise, it was covered in moss and tangled vines. But sometime while we were fighting, the cliffs had changed. They were now riddled with caves. Like a honeycomb, there were too many to count. And at the entrance of every cave stood a tall Sasquatch, all in different poses, all staring at us with predatory eyes. My heart hammered against my ribs. My scalp went numb. I turned my head stiffly to look at Flora. Flora, time for your ritual dance. Flora rolled her eyes. It's not a ritual dance. There are so many of them, I don't know if I can handle it. After I finish the chant, we all run for the valley entrance. Got it. Flora bit her fingertip, smeared the blood on her left palm, and drew a complex totem. She then pressed her hand to her heart. Goo of four corners bind the soul of the great vault. Take your toll. With 100,000 kin, let the spell begin. Flora rhythmically tapped her chest, her feet stepping in time with the beat. Her body spun in the air, her dark hair flying, her expression both pious and sacred. I felt a pang of jealousy. Her weird-looking dance was way more impressive than me yelling, "By the power of the law, I command thee." It was so annoying. Flora continued her dance, and the ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble in unison. With my blood, I call your soul. With my body, I pray for your descent. Run! A huge black cloud appeared on the horizon, buzzing loudly. Countless insects swarmed down from above. At the same time, the Sasquatches began to howl, grabbing vines and leaping down from the cliffs. I summoned every ounce of my strength and ran for my life. Flora had summoned every snake, insect, and rodent she could, but there were too many Sasquatches. I didn't know how long her minions could hold them off. Damn it, don't pull on me. I burst out of the valley entrance and looked back. Jenny was clinging to Leo's arm, slowing him down. They had barely made any progress. This was a pain. I had to run back and grab Jenny's other arm. The two of us practically dragged Jenny forward. Behind us, the buzzing of insects and the roars of the Sasquatches grew louder. I didn't dare look back again. After running for what felt like an eternity, Flora tripped on a root and fell, spitting up a mouthful of blood. Flora, are you okay? I rushed over to help her up. Flora's face was as pale as paper. She waved her hand weakly. I can't run anymore. I used too much energy. Let's rest for a bit. We sat down against a tree trunk, pulling out water and food from our bags. I finished my water bottle, then squatted down and used the cap to scoop up the blood Flora had just coughed up. Joanna, what are you doing? You have a golden cicada goo in you. This blood is too valuable to waste. I can use it on my 7-star sword later to deal with evil spirits. Flora replied. You're surprisingly frugal. Insects buzzed around us. Flora told us there was a small wooden cabin nearby, probably a temporary shelter for herb gatherers. We found the cabin. I set up a simple formation nearby to mask our presence. By then it was completely dark. Everyone was exhausted. I lit a fire in the cabin, and we all sat around it to rest. Jenny, clutching her stomach, went behind the cabin to use the bathroom. I recounted the events of the past 2 days. Flora, who had been dozing against the wall, suddenly sat up. For the Xiaoyang and the Gugu, an eternal bond. That explains it. These Sasquatches, they're the Xiaonong. Ancient texts describe the Xiaoyang as having human faces, long lips, black hairy bodies, and backward-facing heels. When they saw people, they would laugh, and they were often depicted holding a bamboo tube. The bamboo tube was a reference to how people used to hunt them by placing tubes on their own wrists to exploit the creature's habits. The Xiaoyang were also known as the Gan Giants, and like the Gugu, or Ghost Mother, they were once generals under the command of the war demon Chiyu. You should be more familiar with the Ghost Mother than I am. She's the stuff of legends. The Gugu and Shaoyang tribes intermarried for generations. If a woman became pregnant, there was a small chance she would awaken her bloodline and become a ghost mother. When a ghost mother appears, 1,000 homes fall silent. All of us together couldn't even take on one of her fingers. Flora had started out laughing, but as she spoke, her smile faded. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. Joanna, where did you say you found Jenny? In the Sasquatch's tree hollow. The legendary ghost mother was said to have the head of a tiger and the feet of a dragon. She could give birth to 10 ghosts at once, and would devour them by nightfall. She was the mother of 10,000 demons. Honestly, a creature of that level, I couldn't beat it. Jenny had been in that hollow for 20 years. If she wasn't pregnant with a demon child, she probably would have died long ago under those conditions. My face instantly turned pale. Leo, finally catching on, asked, "So, that lady from before, she might be a ghost mother?" Just as he spoke, the cabin door was thrown open. Jenny stood in the doorway, her hair disheveled and plastered to her wet face. She gave us a stiff, strange smile. "It's raining outside." Jenny sat down by the fire, running her fingers through her hair to dry it. The three of us exchanged frantic glances. "Run. Let's go. The ghost mother has to keep eating ghosts to evolve, right? She hasn't even given birth yet. Let's try to do something. The Sasquatches outside are tough to beat too. You don't get it. The ghost mother isn't that simple. I can't handle her. Are you leaving or not? If you're not, I am." Our silent conversation ended. I cleared my throat and patted Leo's hand. "Walk me to the bathroom. I'm scared." "Ahem, grab your bag, there's toilet paper in there." "Okay." Leo slung his backpack over his shoulder, put an arm around me, and we walked stiffly toward the door. Flora jumped up. "Wait for me. My stomach hurts too." Once the door was shut, the three of us snuck around to the back and peered through the window. "Joanna, aren't you the guild master? A ghost mother that hasn't given birth, yet is on a totally different level from the legends. Are you sure you can't beat her?" Flora was still hopeful. I covered her mouth with my hand and gestured for her to look inside. The deep mountain forest was silent at night, with only the occasional chirp of an insect or bird. A light rain was falling. Inside the cabin, the orange firelight flickered, casting a soft glow on Jenny's figure. Her back was to us. She suddenly reached a hand under her dress. Soon, the faint cry of a baby was heard. Jenny held a furry infant in her arms, its body covered in a thick, sticky fluid. Jenny gently stroked it, humming a soft lullaby. As she hummed, she brought the baby to her mouth, opened wide, and bit into its neck. I held my breath. Jenny tore at the infant ferociously, juices splattering. In a few bites, she had devoured it completely. Then she reached under her dress again, and pulled out another one. Ugh. Flora covered her mouth. The three of us looked at each other, our expressions grimly determined. Time to run. I pulled out my formation flags and copper coins and quickly set up a simple soul-locking array outside. A low-level array like this wouldn't hold a ghost mother for long, but I had smeared Flora's blood on the coins. Her golden cicada goo could suppress evil spirits. Hopefully, it would buy us half an hour. The three of us quietly retreated. Once we were a safe distance from the cabin, we broke into a dead sprint. "I'm so tired, Joanna. I really regret coming to this godforsaken place with you." The jungle at night was a maze of dense, shadowy trees, the darkness hiding unknown beasts. The rain had turned the ground to mud, making our escape incredibly difficult. As we ran, I explained to the others that there were different levels of ghost mothers. In the early stages, a ghost mother is weak after giving birth. She eats all her children, and then her belly swells again. This process repeats for several years. Eventually, she can pull children out of her belly to eat at will. At that point, she has reached the level of a ghost general and is extremely difficult to deal with. There were even higher levels beyond that. The legendary one that gave birth to 10 ghosts at once was a mythological being I had never encountered. Jenny had been guarded by the Sasquatches, unable to leave the valley. Now that we had freed her, there was no telling what chaos she would unleash. I was filled with regret. She had shown no trace of demonic energy, which was why I had let my guard down and failed to make an accurate judgment. "It's not your fault. A ghost general can conceal its energy. It's normal that you didn't notice. A deep voice came from behind a nearby tree. I froze. Flora, why is your voice so deep? Flora shook her head, her hand over her mouth, and pointed forward. I slowly turned my head. The rain was pouring down. Leo held up a flashlight, illuminating a small circle in front of us. Jenny stood there, one hand on her stomach, the other twirling a lock of hair around her finger. Joanna, thank you for getting me out of that awful place. Since you've helped me this far, why not let me eat the three of you? How about it? I spat. In your dreams. A mouthful of blood from the tip of my tongue hit Jenny's face. She let out a piercing scream. In a situation like this, any hesitation is a sign of disrespect to the ghost's mother. I drew my 7-star sword and thrust it at her stomach. As expected, her belly was as hard as steel. The sword couldn't even scratch the skin. I quickly pulled out my lightning-struck wood tablet. Several bolts of heavenly lightning struck Jenny. She was injured, but her rage meter was now at maximum. I tensed, waiting for her to unleash her ultimate attack. Instead, she clutched her stomach and slowly lay down on the ground. A ghost mother, was that all? Flora scoffed and walked forward. Joanna, I don't think this ghost mother is as tough as you said. Jenny lay on her back, her legs spread. Something crawled out from between them. The creature had the head of a tiger and the eyes of a dragon, with vertical pupils. A pair of leathery, bat-like wings grew from its back. It had no fur, only smooth, slimy skin. It was a grotesque, unnatural thing. At the same time, Jenny's body collapsed like an empty sack, leaving only a loose layer of skin on the ground. As tough as you said. Run. Flora spun around and bolted. My hands and feet went cold, my heart sinking. We were doomed. This was a being of a higher level than a ghost general. The heavenly lightning charges in my tablet were limited. I couldn't afford to be stingy. I raised the tablet, about to chant the incantation, when several strange howls echoed from the distance. The creature tensed, its fleshy wings spreading wide. The Sasquatches were coming. Were they trying to capture it? The creature abandoned us. With a flap of its wings, it shot into the air and disappeared into the dense forest. We immediately took off, running for our lives. I don't know how long we ran, but finally, a faint light appeared ahead. I think it's a village. Leo turned on his flashlight. We pushed forward through the rain, and the closer we got, the more familiar the scene became. This was Hatter's Creek. We were back where we started. The sky was beginning to show a hint of dawn. We entered the village and knocked on a door, asking for shelter. The owner was an old man who lived alone. His beady eyes looked us over, and he asked suspiciously, "What are you doing here at this hour?" "We're herb merchants. Our car hit a guardrail yesterday, and we've been looking for help all night." I was wearing Leo's jacket, and the rain had washed the paint off my face. The old man looked at us for a moment and nodded. "Kumein." We took a moment to drink some water, eat something, and change our clothes, then collapsed onto the floor dazed. We hadn't slept for almost 2 nights and had been running all day. My mind was a blank, and my temples throbbed. Flora kicked me. "Joanna, what are we going to do about the ghost mother? Think of something." There were, of course, options. The most powerful force in the universe is the power of the stars. Many great stellar arrays could destroy a ghost mother. But such arrays required a lot of preparation and specific items. Take the celestial circuit array I used against the flood dragon at Lake Poyang. That required crafting 365 main banners, each corresponding to a major star, and arranging them according to the constellations. The sun and moon served as the core of the array. Just crafting those banners alone would take 49 days. How about you wait here for 4 days? I'll go back, get my things, and come back to deal with this ghost mother. Flora rolled her eyes. Why not make it 7 days? Just come back in a week. My eyes lit up. You can last for 7 days? Flora nodded. Yes, 7 days will be the anniversary of my death. If you come then, we can see each other one last time. It'll save you the trouble of summoning my spirit. I fell silent. As we were whispering, a loud banging came from downstairs. Bang, bang, bang. The sound was relentless, shaking the entire wooden door. I quickly peeked out the window. The old man put on his clothes and went to the door grumbling. "Who is it this early? The sun's not even up." The moment the door opened, the old man's eyes widened in disbelief, and he stumbled back. "Jensene? Is that you?" Jenny stood in the doorway, still in her tattered dress, a strange smile on her face. "It's me, Dad. I'm back." Damn it. Of all the houses to pick, we had ended up at Jenny's old home. She had been sent to the mountains by her own father. She hated the entire village. Now that she was free, she was probably going to start a massacre. "Jenny, how did you get back? Did the Sasquatch let you go? What happened?" The old man's expression was anxious. Jenny's face contorted with malice as she glared at him. "You didn't want me to come back, did you? None of you wanted me to come back." The next second, a blood-curdling scream came from downstairs. Jenny had torn off both of the old man's arms and was devouring them. She finished off her father quickly. Her expression softened, and she looked up at the second-floor window murmuring, "Dad, I really want to see my old room." We quickly ducked down, exchanging nervous glances. This was bad. Her room, it couldn't be the one we were in, could it? The sound of steady footsteps came from the stairs. There was no time to think. I quickly stuck a concealment talisman on each of us, and we all dove under the bed. The bed was big enough to hide me and Flora, but Leo, who was over 6 feet tall, had to curl himself into a ball. The door opened, and a pair of slender feet stopped in front of us. We all held our breath, not daring to move. Jenny walked around the room, touching this and that, then came back to the bed and lay down. Soon, the faint sound of a baby crying came from above us. This time, Jenny didn't eat the ghost child immediately. She gave birth to one after another. The moment the infants landed on the bed, they opened their eyes and began to crawl around. One of them fell off the bed and landed right in front of us. It had a furry body like a monkey, but the lower half was a snake's tail. It was covered in a sticky fluid and stared at us with huge, black, curious eyes. I didn't move. Flora shut her eyes and buried her head in Leo's shoulder. Leo immediately pushed her away. Flora was furious and pinched him. I shot them a warning look. "Don't move. If you keep making noise, we're all going to die." Leo glared back. "She's taking advantage of me." Flora mouthed as if. I glared at Leo. "What's your problem? Letting her lean on you for a second won't kill you." Leo mouthed back, "I don't want to." As we were having our silent argument, the infant in front of us mouth puckered, about to scream. I quickly covered its mouth. Uncle, are you home? I heard a scream from your house. Is everything okay?" Another knock came from downstairs. Jenny sat up abruptly, giggling. Hee, my babies, go out and play. There are lots of tasty things outside." She flew out the window, and the swarm of infants followed her. A series of horrific screams erupted from downstairs. It was over. She was birthing all these ghost children and not eating them. She was using them to slaughter the village. We scrambled out from under the bed. I subdued the little ghost child and tossed it back on the mattress. To the ancestral hall now. The hall housed the statue of the Horn God. Since the ghost mother was descended from one of Chiyu's generals, she might be wary of it. And when we were going up the mountain, Elder Hemlock had said it was a blessing if the Sasquatch grabbed my shoulders. The village must have had a ghost mother in its history. They might have a way to control her. As we ran toward the hall, screams echoed from the nearby houses. Villagers stumbled out, scrambling and crawling toward the hall. By the time we burst in, Elder Hemlock was already there, along with the Millers. Wyatt was sitting on the floor, half asleep and dazed. Elder Hemlock was beating his chest and wailing. "This is a disaster. The ghost mother is supposed to be trapped with the Xiaoyang forever. Why is she back in the village?" I grabbed his collar and slapped him twice. "Stop wailing. What do we do now?" Elder Hemlock snapped out of it. "Quick. All the men over here. Drip your blood into the altar. Everyone light a stick of incense." The villagers reacted quickly, each one lighting an incense stick as instructed. The hall doors were barred shut. Outside, the screams gradually faded. Amidst the villagers' murmurs, we pieced together the full story. The villagers of Hatter's Creek were indeed descendants of the Gugu clan. According to their traditions, If the clan produced a ghost mother, the entire village's fortune would prosper. The more people the ghost mother killed, the stronger the village's luck became. The ghost mother was guarded by the Xiaoyang. The symbol I had wiped away in the tree hollow was likely meant to suppress her. The Xiaoyang would bring living people back to feed her. That huge pile of bones wasn't from the Sasquatch's meals, it was from Jenny's. Every 10 years, the village would send a woman to Sasquatch Hollow. If the Sasquatch wasn't interested, the villagers would use the woman as bait to hunt it, then share the meat. The Xiaoyang clan permitted this. If the Sasquatch was interested, the woman would become a ghost mother, trapped in the valley, enhancing the village's fortune. Either way, the women suffered and the men benefited. What a disgusting, calculating tradition. After so many years of this evil, the village was finally getting what it deserved. I had no desire to interfere, but I was the one who had freed the ghost mother. After she was done with the village, she would undoubtedly wreak havoc elsewhere. I couldn't just ignore it. You dared to cultivate a ghost mother, but you weren't afraid of her seeking revenge? Does your village have any way to subdue her? There's no way. What way could there be? The ghost mother is bound to the Xiaoyang forever. That's what the book says. What book? Let me see it. Some villagers were crying. Others were groaning in pain on the floor. Elder Hemlock, his face ashen, dazedly walked behind the altar and pulled a thin booklet from under the statue. I opened it. It contained only a few sentences and some drawings. The ghost mother was one of Qi Yu's 3 great generals. Her bloodline was special, an ordinary human body couldn't contain it. Only through the union of the Gugu and Xiaoyang tribes could a ghost mother be born. And even then, the chances were slim. The ghost mother's nature was extremely violent. While she was still developing her power, the Xiaoyang tribe would guard her, both as jailers and protectors. When she became strong enough to overwhelm the Xiaoyang and break free, there would be nothing in the mortal world that could stop her. I flipped through a few pages. The beginning was all about the origins of the ghost mother and the rules of the Gugu clan. The last page, however, mentioned something else. Do not go near the ancient tarn. What's the ancient tarn? It's a deep pool between our village and Stonehouse Village. Nothing special about it. None of us go there. I read the book again, but I still couldn't find a way to stop the ghost mother. As I was about to ask Elder Hemlock more questions, the hall doors were suddenly struck. Uncle Hemlock, it's Jenny. I'm back. Open the door. A low voice came from outside. Everyone screamed in terror, huddling together with their incense sticks. Elder Hemlock's voice trembled. Jenny, you're married to the Sasquatch now. You shouldn't come back to the village. Please go away. The voice outside immediately fell silent. Just as Elder Hemlock sighed in relief, the entire wooden door exploded into splinters. Jenny stood in the doorway, her appearance completely transformed. She was naked, nearly 8 feet tall, her skin an unnatural purplish blue. A pair of fleshy wings grew from her back, and her stomach was still swollen as if she were 9 months pregnant. Infants crawled all over her body. A demon. The villagers let out a deafening scream. The ghost infants rushed toward the hall, but they stopped at the entrance, hesitating as they looked at the incense in the villagers' hands, seemingly afraid to approach. Elder Hemlock was overjoyed. Don't be afraid, everyone. She can't get in. I gave Flora a look. This hall won't hold for long. Let's slip out the back. Flora understood. We slipped past the crowd and snuck into the back courtyard, climbing over the wall. The ancient tarn wouldn't have been mentioned in the book for no reason. It had to be important, maybe even the key to stopping the ghost mother. The sky had brightened. Not long after we escaped, screams and cries erupted from the direction of the hall again. My heart clenched. I quickened my pace. After running for about a mile, the mountains began to close in, the forests on either side growing dense, flanking a deep, green pool of water. The water was dark and still, a thin, transparent mist rising from its surface. It was a beautiful scene, but there was nothing else remarkable about it. The 3 of us stood by the water's edge, panting. Flora rested her hands on her knees. This thing is supposed to stop the ghost mother? How? Push her in and drown her. She found her own suggestion amusing and started laughing, patting Leo on the shoulder. Haha, You think this little pond can drown a ghost mother? Leo took a disgusted step back. Again? What is your problem? Haven't you ever heard of personal space? Flora's smile vanished. She gritted her teeth. Are you from the 19th century or something? What the hell? I stepped in to mediate. Come on, Leo, be a gentleman. Letting her touch you for a second won't hurt. Leo retorted. I don't want her to. Flora shot back. Like I want to touch him. As they were arguing, a 30-foot-high column of water suddenly shot up from the tarn. We all jumped back in alarm. The geyser lasted for about a minute, then a green smoke rose from the water's surface, obscuring everything. Leo suddenly slapped his forehead. Oh, I remember. This is that tarn. Before he came, Leo had researched the local legends. Besides the Sasquatch, there was also a story about a lake monster. The ancient tarn between Hatter's Creek and Stonehouse Village had 6 reported sightings of a monster in the 1980s. According to eyewitnesses, the creature looked like a giant toad, but it was massive, 6 to 9 feet long, dozens of times the size of a normal toad. It had a flat, round head, 2 huge eyes like headlights, and grayish-white skin covered in wart-like bumps. It also had a tail. Some experts thought it was a taimen salmon. Others believed it was a relict amphibian, a giant salamander that had survived the Ice Age in the deep tarn. No one knew for sure what it was. We backed away a few more steps and squatted down, staring at the water. Flora commanded some nearby snakes and insects to approach the tarn. The moment they got close, a huge red tongue shot out of the water, snatched them up in a flash, and the surface went still again. Flora stood up. Forget it, Joe. Your lightning tablet still has a few charges left, right? Just use that on the ghost mother. Let's just pretend we never came here. I only have 4 left. And this tablet has to be passed down to my descendants. It can't have fewer than 3 charges. I can't use any more. If you die here, you won't have any descendants. No means no. I'd rather die than use them. I stood my ground. As I was about to argue with Flora again, the surrounding trees and grass began to shake. A flock of birds burst from the forest. Dozens of infant-like creatures with fleshy wings emerged from the undergrowth. No, they weren't infants anymore. Who knows how many people they had eaten, but these little demons had grown to the size of 4 or 5-year-old children. The ghost mother followed behind them, covered in blood, giggling. Heavenly lightning charges? Sounds powerful. I sneered, tightening my grip on my 7-star sword. You're not worthy of knowing. She sent the little demons after us. Flora and I fought with everything we had. I used up all the talismans and tools in my bag. Flora couldn't chant another spell. We had cleared out most of the little demons, but Flora collapsed. Joe, I'm spent. Completely drained. Are you still not going to use the lightning charges? Leo was being held in a chokehold by the ghost mother. He was badly injured, blood streaming down his arm. She licked the blood from his hand, her expression entranced. Such pure blood. Seeing that she was about to tear Leo to pieces, I gritted my teeth. Damn it, I'm all in. 5 thunders, heed my call. A bolt of lightning struck the ghost mother. She staggered back, releasing Leo. Haha, so this is your heavenly lightning? It's not so impressive. Before she could finish, I charged at her, wrapped my arms around her waist, and we both plunged into the ancient tarn. An icy coldness pierced my body. I gasped, holding my breath and forcing my eyes open. And then I saw something I will never forget. Under the water, there were several huge, dark shapes. Enormous red tongues shot out, grabbing the ghost mother and dragging her down. She let out a piercing scream, bubbles erupting from her mouth. Countless little demons crawled out from between her legs, attacking the tongues. Blood instantly stained the water. I didn't dare linger and thrashed toward the shore. Joanna! Leo was leaning over the edge of the tarn, his hand outstretched. I saw the joy in his eyes turn to terror. The next second, a red tongue wrapped around my waist and yanked me down. The tongue was covered in barbs. I felt a sharp pain in my side, and a cold numbness spread through my body. Half of me was paralyzed. This thing was probably venomous. As I was being dragged under, I quickly crossed my hands behind my back and formed a heaven-turning seal. The seal was named after a legendary artifact that could shatter the heavens. It was a powerful but costly move, draining a massive amount of my own life force. I slammed the seal into the tongue around my waist. It recoiled in pain and quickly retracted. I couldn't muster another ounce of strength. My body went stiff and began to sink. At that critical moment, a warm arm wrapped around my waist. Leo had jumped into the water. He dragged me to the shore, where Flora pulled us both onto the bank. I was completely paralyzed. Leo carried me on his back until the tarn was out of sight before he dared to stop. He gently placed me on the soft grass, and he and Flora collapsed beside me, gasping for breath. Flora checked my eyes. Strange, why isn't Joe moving? Does she need CPR? Leo's face flushed. I can do it. He leaned in, his hot breath on my face, his thick eyelashes fluttering. His lips hovered an inch from mine. Flora wrapped an arm around his neck and pulled him back. You 19th century gentleman. Weren't you the one going on about personal space? Get out of the way, I'll do it. I'm a trained professional. You are not touching Joanna. Leo tried to pull Flora off. She swung at him, and her foot landed squarely on my stomach. These two idiots. The pain was so intense I doubled over and spat out a mouthful of water. Stop fighting. Flora, I'm poisoned. My lips were turning purple. I explained what had happened. Flora squatted beside me, lifted my shirt, and exposed my stomach. Leo quickly turned his head away, scolding. Flora, don't you dare look. Flora shot back. I'll look all I want. And I'll touch too. You two are so annoying. Can you just stop? Flora used her golden cicada goo to counteract the poison. After resting for a while, we helped each other back to Hatter's Creek. The village was a vision of hell. The walls were splattered with blood, and dismembered limbs were scattered everywhere. There was no one left to lead us to the seven-leaf nightshade. I performed a ritual to guide the villagers' souls. Flora was wandering around the ancestral hall when she suddenly pointed behind the statue. Joanna, look. Is that a painting of the ghost mother? I hurried over to see. The statue was about 7 feet tall. Behind it were 3 murals. The first depicted a figure that resembled Jenny, the standard form of a ghost mother. In the second, the ghost mother was no longer giving birth to ghost children, but to countless small snakes. The snakes had fleshy growths on their heads, and they coiled around each other until one of them grew into a horned flood dragon. In the third mural, the ghost mother devoured the flood dragon, then consumed everything in the world, and finally gave birth to a son, a bull-headed, human-bodied figure holding a weapon. Flora's eyes widened. So the legend of the Ninely tribe is true. The ghost mother is a creator deity. Chiyu was her son. I stared at the flood dragon in the painting, frozen, a chill running down my spine. So this was the real plan to resurrect Chiyu. The man-eating snakes we encountered in the desert back west. They were called moonwraiths, formed from the dark energy of a mass grave. They could also be created by refining stolen souls. 100 souls made one wraith. Those swarms of snakes must have cost countless lives. The followers of Chiyu weren't trying to resurrect the dead war demon. They were trying to create another ghost mother to give birth to a new one. The ghost mother from the desert was clearly a higher level than Jenny. She had been buried under the sand. The day she emerged would be the day the world was plunged into chaos. Luckily, I had stumbled upon their plan and injured her with the heavenly lightning, then used the celestial circuit array to cripple the flood dragon, delaying their scheme. To recover, they would need a massive number of fresh souls. It looked like my peaceful days were over. Flora shook her head and sighed. The monsters themselves aren't the scariest part. They're wounded and can only hide in the deep mountains. The truly terrifying thing is that there are people out there, consumed by greed, willing to harm innocent lives for them. No matter how powerful a demon or monster is, they are still bound by the laws of heaven and earth. The most terrifying thing will always be the human heart. If that dark shaman is one of them, and he's been hanging around the Appalachians, he was probably guarding this ghost mother. And we killed her before she could even mature. I guess the job of saving the world falls to us now. I patted Flora's shoulder encouragingly. She looked horrified. That's slander. You killed her. I was just passing by. Flora ran a few steps ahead, cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, I don't want to ruin your plans. I'm innocent. I have nothing to do with Joanna Shaw, you hear me? Comrade, your revolutionary spirit is a little lacking. I chased after Flora, not noticing a gray shadow flit past behind the ancestral hall. Not long after, a photograph of Flora was placed on a table. An old, wrinkled hand picked it up. The saintess of the Meow people, capable of commanding all insects? Interesting. Kill her. The photograph fell to the floor, and a foot stomped down on it hard. End of part.